We had this massive supply of homes, 4 million, that it wasn't until 2016 that it actually got to about 1.5 on MLS at least. So, so when you have a massive supply like that, it makes a price correction. And that's why I don't see that now, because we're just at a million MLS. I think we have a structural problem with supply. If you take a look, I think, Melody, you mentioned that we had a huge population growth, but the housing hasn't kept up. I know, I think it was in the last 12 years, we had almost 16 million households formed and only 8.5 homes being built. So I think we have a huge supply problem, and I think whenever you have a lot of supply, it's better for the home buyer. When you don't have enough, it's not great.
So I have
Oh, sorry.
Please, no, please go ahead. Yeah.
Could I say a couple of
things
to that? So firstly, I want to talk about the equity out there, because I think that people fundamentally kind of misunderstand when you're looking at those aggregate numbers. So one thing that's not captured, Ken, are the payment deferrals, which were the workouts for the Fannie and Freddie, your conventional prime loans, when they did those 18 months of forbearance. Servicers are not even reporting them. And so you basically, what you had is a home equity loan is what that payment deferral kind of was, but it's sitting at the back of that loan to be paid off when you sell the home. So we're missing a big part of that story in terms of that aggregate equity out there. And I have contacted people and asked them, are you in, CoreLogic or Cotality is who does the big mortgage equity withdrawal. And I asked them specifically, how are you capturing these payment deferrals? Because they use public record. They're not. And then the other aspect of it, Ken, is we've had a lot of seller financing, a lot of private note actors come into the space that are doing these things called sub-2 mortgages, all kinds of different things that aren't actually getting reported to credit, because you had these what are called non-performing loan sales that the agencies started doing. FHA was doing them back during the last crisis, but Fannie and Freddie started doing them at scale, selling off these homes to hedge funds. And this is after kind of all the auctions when Wall Street bought them up. And so you have a huge private market that nobody really knows. And then the third thing I would say is, I wrote an article in 2023 called Debunking the Inventory Shortage Myth, because I think we definitely have a shortage of affordable homes, but we don't have a shortage of housing units. You can just simply, divide housing units by population. We've got more housing than we've ever had. And so I think that a lot of people thought we needed to build homes, and there wasn't a lot of building, but we had already overbuilt. And you can look at the Harvard, joint, their housing policy group, and talking about our demographics now, and that we pulled forward so much demand. And so I think that as the silver tsunami descends on us, we're going to have a ton of inventory come to the market that a lot of people aren't expecting. And then, of course, you had the short-term rental craze that's petering out. And the other thing I'll say is I've actually driven all over the country to these markets and looked at the supply and what we're seeing in permits, what we're probably seeing, because there's a lot of areas like in Texas and other places where you don't actually even have to file permits. But there's probably 25% more supply out there on just the new home inventory than what most people think. And then there's so much vacancy as you drive around these cities, because you had people buy to fix and flip and then they ran out of money. Or, you just have these second and third homes that are owned by the boomers. Per the census, we have about 15 million vacant homes, not abandoned. So I think that the supply is out there. I think it's mispriced. And there's certainly areas where you might need some, but what I've seen on the road is staggering. And it's we have absolutely overbuilt in this cycle. And I think that was done based on kind of misunderstanding about population gain, especially in the Sun Belt. But sorry, I know I said a lot there, but I just wanted to kind of
No, fascinating. But I have a question. No, so if because I follow permits, I follow obviously interest rates, and what happens when interest rates go up, permits go down because it's more expensive to build, and so and I'm a builder too, so we we're actively out there, and so when rates go up, people sit on land for longer, and so, but I watch the MLS numbers, and so I know, so if we have that much inventory out there, why isn't the inventory, the vacant house at least showing up? Because we had in 2022, we only had 400,000 homes on the MLS. And in 2008, we had 4 million. So somebody in 2008 put 4 million homes on the MLS, and somebody in 2022 put 400,000 homes on the MLS, which means that 3.6 million homes got absorbed, in 14 years. And so, but I also know from personal experience, what was not going on after 2008, after the pop, was building, because the banks had taken on so much real estate, so much REO, or real estate owned, and there was water going in the boat the whole time. We were dealing with Bank of America, Wells Fargo. We even had some deals with Lehman Brothers, and the values are dropping like crazy, so they were not lending. So I personally know that there's no homes being built post GFC. So,
Right.
But let me tell you what there was happening. People were being born, people were graduating from school, household formation did go up. It's at 133 million right now. So, so we did have household formation going up during that time, and no supply being added. And I actually love the Harvard study that you brought up. I like Brookings and I like Harvard because they're independent,
Right.
they're independent, the National Home Builders or the NMHC or Realtor or Zillow, because they're all over the map. But and I've really dug in. I've read all of those, and to me the math looks pretty clear that
Right.
you've got at least over 3 million short, and that was predicated from call it post GFC.